service for unusual occasions. There would be a special order of service for a wedding. There'd be a special order of service for the dedication of a new church building. Special order of service for the ordination of a deacon, ordination of a minister, commissioning of a missionary. And there's special orders of services for many different kinds of funerals. For an infant, for an elderly person, for a tragic and sudden death, a military funeral, all kinds of funeral services. And they're spelled out with selected scriptures that deal with the age or the trauma, the tragedy. They have prayers suggested and all. It's a beautiful, beautiful deal. And ministers have these little manuals. Well, he went out and bought himself one. Came back and looked under funerals for the elderly, for the wonderfully committed member, and it's just beautiful stuff. He was so pleased. Didn't realize that he had bought a minister's manual from the Episcopal Church. Now, don't blame this fella. Anything organized looks Catholic to a Baptist. I mean, if it's even mimeographed, most of our folks think you ought to swing incense first. You know, they just don't feel comfortable. So he goes through it and puts it together and did the funeral service, and the people in the church were just slack-jawed with amazement. Golly, that's wonderful. What a mature, sensitive, able, young minister we got ourselves. Woo, good. Hey, pulpit committee, you done fine. Then they went to the burial service and got to the cemetery. Opens the minister's manual to the committal service. And in it says, the minister may wish to gather a handful of soil and walk before the pallbearers to the burial site, scattering the dust abroad as he recites the following verses. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, from the earth we come, to the earth we return. He said, boy, that is great. So they're standing there beside the cars at the funeral. Pallbearers have just gotten hold of the handles on the casket, holding the dearly departed. And the minister reaches over and gets a big handful of dirt. It's trickling out between his class ring and his little finger. And with his book held open with one hand and a handful of dirt in the other, he looks at the pallbearers, every one of them essentially rural gentlemen. All of them brown from here down, white from here up. Farming in the John Deere caps, okay? You married one of them, I can tell. In fact, I can see that white head out there now, yeah. But they stood there studying this preacher. In Kentucky, we have a wonderful expression. They studied him right smart. They're puzzled, because there he is holding a handful of dirt. They're thinking to themselves, you know, preacher, this ain't a bring your own dirt funeral. They got a little truck that comes later. And he says to them, y'all ready? And one of them sort of shrugs like, well, I guess so. You know, that's what we came to do, and I got my hands full. So the preacher turns with authority, and with his handful of dirt begins scattering it in the air, walking before these bewildered pallbearers who can't turn loose to brush off the dirt. And they follow him up the trail. And he walks before them. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. From the earth we come, to the earth we return. Blump. He walks right in the hole. True story. I just remind you that God has a wonderful sense of humor. If he didn't, there wouldn't be any Baptists. We all know that. If God hadn't had a sense of humor, the ostrich would put his head somewhere else when he got upset and nervous. He does look strange, and I know God gets tickled every time he hides. And the avocado pit would be smaller. Ask Abraham if God had a sense of humor. No, ask Sarah. She's 92 years old, craving pizza, and it hadn't been thought of. And goes in to see the doctor. And I know what she said when he brought out the lab scroll. I'm what? Your response is never, thy will be done. You don't do that. And they named the child Isaac. Isaac in Hebrew means laughter. Don't you know that's what they heard? Everywhere they went. You go in and try to explain that at the Medicare office. But how true it is that one of God's great gifts to us always at the end of our days is the gift of laughter. How in the midst of our travail, our struggle, and our turmoil, he comes to give us courage for the journey and companionship for the trip. I have one problem with our folks like Mr. Jim Baker and a few others who get on television with whatever colored telephones they have and tell us that our faith in God will deliver us from chiggers. I mean, you have faith and walk out in Bermuda grass with shorts on, dear heart, you're going to find chiggers. And you stand still, they'll find you. Chiggers and faith don't have anything to do with each other. And I don't believe a lot of other things and faith have a whole lot to do with each other. It rains on the just and on the unjust and not just on the just. Let's remember that. You see, David never did say in the Psalms, if I have faith in God, he will take me around the valley of the shadow of death. David said he goes through it with me. And our Lord proved on the cross with his palms nailed to that stark tree that it is in the midst of our suffering we learn most about the presence of the living God. Why tell me that if I suffer, I am faithless? Instead, teach me honestly what life teaches me. And God would share at his most honest moments with us. And that is that my faith in God is a resource for my struggles which will come to me. There will always be blights, and there will always be diseases, and there will always be problems, and it is the stalwart folks who learn in the midst of a painful journey to bear up with hope, to smile, to laugh, and to rejoice, who teach us the most about what it means to be his children. Give me that kind of disciple any day, and I will follow him wherever he leads. But do not make me think that because I have struggled that I have no faith. And it was Job's comforters who kept saying to him, okay, Job, you can tell us now, what did you do? And Job said, though the skin worms destroy my body, yet I know in my flesh I will see God. I have not displeased him. And that is not why I have boils and sores. Boils and sores come to all of us, but the same oven that melts wax will harden clay. And I believe with all my heart that the faith in God that keeps my soul and your soul strong before him will bear us up in the midst of the journey and give us joy at the end of it. And his laughter comes to those who know that best. I found this verse once carved in barnwood in Gatlinburg, and I believe it as much as I do any psalm. And it says, laughter is the hand of God on the shoulder of a troubled world. I really do believe that. Does God have a sense of humor? Yes. If he doesn't, I'm in serious trouble. But because he does, I feel real comfortable. It's been a pleasure to have you with us tonight. If you'll let me slip down that side wall in just a second, I'll wait in the gift shop, visit with as many of you as want to for as long as you want to stay. I'm just real pleased that you've come. Bless you, and you can clap one more time because I am now officially through, and I'll see you in the gift shop. Thank you.